Hello and welcome to yet another Geek Show where the theme song is a fucking slapper. I'm your host, Josh Keir.
I'm your host, Alton Munnell.
And I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I hope you enjoyed our slapping intro.
It truly does slap, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I'm glad you like it, Josh.
It was written.
All right, so what'd you guys do this week?
The greatest.
Let's see. Well, Alex and I, we started a little spin-off of the podcast. We started a Let's Play series on YouTube, probably not published by the time this episode is, but go find the channel anyway. We might have mentioned this last week already. In any case, we checked out a game called One Strike. Alex, why don't you go ahead?
I believe we already covered One Strike. Probably in the last episode.
We covered Dive Kick.
Did we cover Dive Kick?
Yeah, Dive Kick was what
I
we talked about last week.
Yeah. Well, One Strike is kind of like Dive Kick, but and only in the regards that it's a one-hit kill. You can move left and right. You have side steps, even though it's like a 2D like Street Fighter style game. You have a block and an attack, and each character is actually balanced really well. It's honestly just a good ice-breaking kind of game. Like, you know, you have a party. You can throw on Dive Kick, Smash Brothers, or One Strike, and it'll get people to actually have fun and start conversing. And, you know, seeing people trash talk when they first meet, for me at least, is a great like starter of like, oh, hey man, you're a piece of shit at this game. Oh, great, we should be friends so we can play this later. You know,
I mean, similar to the other mentioned games, it's one that's easy to pick up, hard to master.
Yeah, since you guys seem to be on that kind of kick lately, have either of you ever played the game Nidhogg?
No.
I've seen it. I've not played it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like in exactly the same kind of vein as Dive Kick and what it sounds like One Strike is, where it's a really simple, easy to pick up, hard to master fighting game. Nidhogg's really cool because it's like a fencing game. You're just two little stick figures, and you each have a sword, and your sword blocks the other guy's sword. It's a one-hit kill, so if you poke them at all, they die. But you'll respawn in a little bit, and the object is to, one person starts on the left side of the screen and one person starts on the right side of the screen, and the object is to either, evade or just kill your opponent and make it to the far end of their side of the screen and throw yourself off a cliff to be eaten by the titular Nidhogg, which for some reason is what makes you win the game.
Oh, okay. So there's a little bit more to it than these other games. But Josh, let me blow your mind real quick and point out
I know where you're going. I was just going to say it.
The reason we've seen before what Nidhogg is because your playable character there is in Dive Kick.
No way. Are you kidding me?
He is in there. And he has his sword, if I remember, right?
Absolutely, because there's a special thing you can do with it that I love ruining people's fun with.
He's the only character with a weapon besides his feet, and you can throw it at the other person.
Okay, yeah,
and
you can throw the sword in Nidhogg too, and it's a really fun. It's like a really high risk, high reward maneuver because sometimes you'll get a kill, and sometimes your opponent will just block it, and then you don't have a weapon anymore.
And like the Nidhogg character, Dalton's excellent at throwing swords at opponents too.
That's how I sword fight in real life.
It's an ideal tactic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've already been initiated a little bit. I love Nidhogg. It's a really good party game too. The matches are real quick, and it's very, how do I say this, visually unique. Like, it's really striking when it's on the screen. I wouldn't call the graphics good by your general like objective sense, but it's very interesting visually. At least the first one. The sequel is interesting visually in a way where I think it's maybe just not good.
Ooh. Well, about the visuals, I'd say this is true about One Strike also. It has that it's not harkening back quite so far, but it's a throwback to retro video game styles, and it's definitely something you notice when it's on the screen. Although maybe it's a bit inconsistent. I feel like it feels like maybe Super Nintendo era to me, but they like really pick and choose where the details are. So like none of the fighters actually have faces drawn, even though it seems like there's enough pixels available to do that.
Yeah, it's more they hand draw the actual character, but then throw just a nice retro looking bit version of the character in the match.
Yeah, they're like drawn and real nice looking on the character select screen.
Yeah.
And then very low detail in the actual fight. And then also strangely, the characters are outlined, which isn't totally the norm in pixelated games, but they're outlined in white.
Yeah.
Which is particularly odd. It's just something that I don't know if I like it or dislike it, but it certainly pops out as unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking up some
screenshots
right now because I've never heard of this game before, and it's definitely very unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it feels to me like compared to Dive Kick, because we played both of them back to back, it doesn't have any humor in it like Dive Kick does, so there's an advantage for Dive Kick there. But this game feels more tactical and fast to me. This one, okay, Dive Kick has its dive and its kick button, but this one has an attack and a block button.
Right.
And what'll happen is if it, we said this in the Let's Play, but it's like playing Hot Hands, because if you flinch and hit your block button, but the other character didn't actually swing, well, now once your block animation is finished, they're going to get you now.
Yeah.
So it's very careful, precise timing.
Yeah, exactly. The one big thing that I truly enjoy about it is just how quick things can change. You know, if you're at like the first of 5 wins, you know, you could be 3 ahead, and all it takes is like 2 or 3 bad moves in the next few rounds, and they're caught up with you or beating you. So it's a really grounded game in its mechanic. So it's good enough to where you can pick up on it quick enough if you're used to this, or even if you're not used to it, you just like if you have good hand-eye coordination or good reaction time, it's actually a good mix match between it, you know? So even the experienced player can still seem like a beginner to a beginner.
Yeah. Yeah, and I played, after you left, Alex, I played a bit of the single player content, and it's there, but I'm not going to do much with it. I tried it for maybe a half an hour, and it's, I don't know, I don't know, this game's going to be reserved to multiplayer for me. I'm going to consider myself done with it until somebody asks me to play it with them. I mean, some people I'm sure are looking for that single player content. I usually am, but this particular game, it's more of a party environment for me. I'm good.
Which explains why I still wrecked your shit, because I beat most of the stories with most of the characters.
Oh, well, there you go. So apparently it was a bit more worthwhile for you.
It was one of those things, because I was like, I know I'm going to play this with people. I have to be good at it.
Yeah. Well, and you also have it on a portable platform, so you're probably playing it on the toilet or while you're multitasking and watching TV and stuff. I have it on my PC, so if I'm already sitting at my desktop, this probably isn't the game I'm going to open.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the portable stuff. If I might segue here real quick, guys. What do you guys know about Shovel Knight?
A lot. I love it.
Okay.
Haven't played.
Josh,
Dalton,
did you know that there's a new shovel? I know.
I'm aware of the reputation.
There's a new Shovel Knight game coming out, Josh.
The King of Cards expansion?
Yes.
Yes. I had the very good fortune to play a little bit of it at PAX East last year when I went. And I played the demo of because they're doing another platforming campaign where you play as King Knight, and they're doing a card game interlude that actually kind of reminds me of the card game side quests in Final Fantasies 8 and 9, if either of you are familiar.
Yeah. I had all the cards in Final Fantasy 8.
Yeah. It feels a lot like Triple Triad. Wait, was that the 8?
Okay.
Was Triple Triad in 8 or 9?
8.
Okay, 8 was Triple Triad. Yeah, it feels a lot like that one. It's really fun from what I've played. I've been really looking forward to it ever since it's come out. The Spectre Knight campaign was my favorite one yet.
I'm so glad you said that, man. It was so good.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Dalton, especially since we just played like Mega Man 1 through 6 for that Spotlight episode a few weeks ago. You, I think, will now have an even more of an appreciation for Shovel Knight if you play it now, because it is very much a love letter to platformers of that era. And I specifically got a ton of Mega Man vibes from just the gameplay and the soundtrack alike.
It takes all the best parts of Mega Man, Castlevania, and Zelda 2.
Zelda 2 has good parts.
The fighting mechanic I thought was really good. Like it was good.
You caught me a little off guard there too, Josh.
It was good in the regards that it was ahead of its time, but it didn't execute very well. I think Shovel Knight fixed it.
When I heard Zelda 2, my brain went, that can't possibly be right. He must have meant Zelda also. And then I couldn't figure out how it would have been pulling from Zelda.
It did the platforming and like the combat area, I think. Like it did that better than Zelda 2 did, where I think that Zelda 2 really failed at.
Sure.
I'm trying to think, because like the one big thing that it does right that Castlevania didn't was when you get hit and get flung back, but there's nothing underneath of you, so you just immediately die. Like they fixed that in this game. It's just, oh, dude, you have to play it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best part is, I think it's like $10, $15 if you get it on most platforms, and every expansion campaign that they released afterwards, because it just released with the Shovel Knight campaign early on, and there have been 2 other like full-fledged games they've released starring other characters in the game that they just keep coming out with for free. And all the expansion, like this new one that's coming out, will also be free. The one thing.
Okay, well, I'll be adding that to my Steam wish list once we're off of here. It's a shame the sale ended a day or 2 ago. But all right.
The big thing. Just want to touch one last thing on Shovel Knight.
Sure.
You'll notice that the levels repeat in each different game version, but it's the mechanics that completely change, which is super interesting to me, because where you couldn't get away with one thing in Spectre of Torment, you can get away with it in Shovel Knight or Plague of Shadows. It's
okay. I'm intrigued by that for sure.
Absolutely. So don't be discouraged when you start playing one or the other and notice that the map is the entire same, because although they're the same map, it's a completely different game each time.
And it's not always the areas are the same, but it's not always just like a one-to-one complete recreation of all of the levels.
Right.
There will be like different segments built into the levels to take advantage of your character's unique movement mechanics, and like certain other things. There'll be like different enemies, and it's different. It's different enough to make it not feel like you're playing through the same game exactly 3 times.
Right.
You're playing through variations of it.
And each individual character in the game has its own separate story, so that's what's also really nice. It's not just like, oh, hey, play Symphony of the Night, but with like Richter and have the same exact story, you know?
Yeah, okay, well, we'll definitely be coming back to this game eventually. So the other thing that we let's played this weekend was N64 Smash Bros. And maybe we won't say too much about that. We'll probably save that for a spotlight and start doing a series of those. But in the meantime, I guess we can summarize our experience returning to this game and say it happened.
This game can suck my butt.
It's a beta in a way. It's fine. I'm not mad we went back to it, but it boy, I remembered it feeling a lot better than it does.
Yeah. Man. And I know you got really mad because I just mained Link the entire time. But I wreck.
I got a bunch of experience after you left with all of the characters, and I still don't really have a main in that one because I never got comfortable with it. Just something feels real off.
Yeah.
Just unpolished, I guess.
Pro tip,
I just can't wait.
Kirby is the best character in that game by far.
I'll give him that. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I get the chance to play with you guys sometime, I'll prove it.
Well, you'll probably stomp me with any character, so I don't know if it'll prove much.
I might be able to put up a fight, Josh.
I guess we'll have to see. Maybe we'll get that on the channel.
Oh, you bet, dude. It's no longer a thought, it's a promise.
Although I eventually improved at one point when I caught on to a really vital mistake I was making. This says to me that it's been way too long since I've played a Smash game. I kind of forgot there was separate jump buttons from hitting up, and consistently trying to use the up button to jump was ruining my life.
Oh, yeah.
You mean tilting up on the stick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes it very jarring.
In every game in the series where you're able to disable tapping up to jump, I do that because
Me too.
it just I don't understand how. I mean, I get that, like, in most fighting games you press up on your stick to jump, but in Smash Bros it just doesn't work. It just has never felt good to me.
It ruins your timing.
I mean it's been fine in like more traditional fighters like Mortal Kombat. I guess it's always up, but like this game has so much more verticality,
Right.
Yeah.
and so much more just traversal in general. It's not all combat. It's your ability to get back to the map or to get exactly where on the map you want to be.
Yeah, you're not moving
And
around a
so-
whole lot in like Street Fighter or something like that. So just having to press
Right.
up to jump is fine because you also don't have, multiple moves of your character that are specifically tied to you also holding up on your stick while pressing a button.
Yeah, like say controlling Yoshi's egg.
Right.
Like you're also using up for that, or I guess to trigger any of your
smash attacks or your
moves.
upward tilts.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least just to trigger them, even if it's not for aiming them after the fact.
Right. For me, like I like to with having jump pushed up on the up stroke of the stick. For me, a lot of the times it really does ruin my timing for a lot of moves in the game. Because like the schematic design of either the GameCube controller or the N64 controller, where the joystick sits, is in an 8-directional pattern.
Yeah, it's got that octagonal gate.
Thank you. Yes. If you're just a little too high on the up left or up right on either of them, it executes the jump mechanic. So like if you're trying to, like, you get blown off the stage and you're trying to save that double jump just before you're about to reach the ledge so you can do your third jump or your up B move, it ruins it. And like,
Yeah, I realized something. I realized something was really off when I was trying to do all the break the targets, and it was either with Kirby or Jigglypuff. I was trying to do a bit where you had to be able to travel really far across the map, and I knew something had to be off when I didn't have enough control over what I was doing. I'd be like holding up and then it would trigger like 3 times just because it's a really clunky way to do things. And because like you're holding over like to the left at the same time. So you're trying to like hold it going left, occasionally rock it up. And then when you move back down to left, like you might accidentally trigger the up again. And I'm like, something is way off here. I have no control over what this is doing right now. And I like looked at a YouTube video of someone else doing it. And I'm like, they have exact precise control. What is happening here? And I'm now realizing there's an ongoing pattern in this show of me making things harder for myself by not noticing simple gameplay mechanics.
Exactly. I've noticed that too, man. Um, one last thing about the jumping thing, especially if you get launched in the air in Smash Bros. Depending on which direction you're holding the stick, when you get hit, you can kind of deflect some of the trajectory you're going at.
Mm-hmm.
Which was something I learned a little later on in my time of playing the game. So, like, if you get hit and you know you're going straight sideways, if you hold up on the stick, it'll actually bring your character upwards, bringing an arc instead of like a straight line.
I feel like I've done that intuitively, but didn't know for sure.
Yep, it's a mechanic called directional influence.
Yes. I see this kid's been doing his homework here on Smash.
Yeah, no, I'm very much into the whole series. I played 4 competitively a little bit, like I went to a few tournaments, and I've been playing a lot of Ultimate, especially since they just came out with the Piranha Plant character, who I wanted to hate because he's not Isaac from Golden Sun, and I was in that camp. But
Thank you. I was kind of agreeing the same way there too, man.
But Piranha Plant's actually really fun, and I hate that I love him. I guess the plant doesn't have a gender.
Josh, it's nice to know that you were actually playing competitively, because I was considering playing competitively, but there's nothing in my area for it that I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know how far away you are from Erie. I've seen a few tournaments in Erie. It might still be a drive, though.
I'm not terribly far, but that would be a long way to drive.
Yeah, well, in any case, let's save more talk about this series for the spotlights.
Absolutely.
Josh.
All right, sounds good.
Have you played anything?
So I have not had a whole lot of time to get into geeky stuff this week. Unfortunately, real life has sort of gotten in the way, but I finished up the single-player campaign on Wargroove, that game I talked about last week, and I'm still really happy with that game. Other than that, I visited a friend.
But you haven't finished up Kingdom Hearts.
So I actually haven't, and I blame Wargroove for that. If anything can exemplify how wholeheartedly I recommend this game, it's that it has distracted me from Kingdom Hearts 3. So
if we're going any further into Kingdom Hearts 3 talk, I have to plug my ears and go la 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 la.
No, I'm not, because I actually haven't played a whole lot of it.
Okay, sweet.
What I did play this week was played some Rock Band 4 at my friend's house over the weekend. Not a whole lot to talk about there, other than that it's really fun, especially when you're like me and your friend has spent a lot of money purchasing additional songs for Rock Band.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I miss these now that you mention it.
Yeah. That whole, I guess, genre kind of died out, and I get it
pretty quick and suddenly.
I get it, because there's not a whole lot of innovation you can do, I feel like, in that genre, or maybe it was just a flash in the pan and it just kind of was always destined to naturally burn out. But I still have a great love for, I mean, it was Guitar Hero first.
Well, and
me.
Guitar Hero, even a year or two ago, I have no idea how this works, but it got a VR game that I've never seen anyone talk about. So that's how dead that is. Us VR gamers begging for good, interesting games to come out.
I haven't heard about that at all.
Give a flying
so it must
shit.
be doing very well.
Couldn't even tell you what it was called. Yeah, I've never. VR gamers, due to the lack of, I don't want to say lack of content, lack of compelling content, will get really hooked on and talkative about really obscure titles, and I've never seen this one pop up since, maybe the day of its release.
Well, what I'm hearing is this is our chance to have some unique content for the show, so we need to play it immediately, and there we go.
Absolutely agreed. But speaking of VR, rhythm games are well and alive there. Mm-hmm. So
are there any ones other than Beat Saber? Because Beat Saber is, I mean, obviously I don't have a VR, but anytime I come visit you, all I can think about is Beat Saber.
Beat Saber's the one that helps to sell VR, but it is far from the only one. It's just
Audio
the
Shield.
most impressive one so far. Audio Shield, sound boxing, Box VR, which is a fitness rhythm game. If I glanced at my Steam library, I'd probably have 10 of them, and most of them are decent, but Beat Saber, I've probably got 10 times the play hours in it over anything else. Not just other VR rhythm games, but most VR games. I think the only thing I have more hours in is Skyrim. Yeah, but anyway, I bring up Beat Saber because the idea of this show is we bring things up once there's certain games you can't say you've completed them, but we've said, once you complete them. And with Beat Saber, I'm at the point where I've accomplished the goals I wanted to, but I mean, thanks to the mod support, I'm still going to keep coming back to it forever. But I had set myself a goal of getting a full combo on every level on hard, and I did that, and beating every level on expert, regardless of combo or points, and I've managed that. So I think at this point, I can call myself done. Josh, this is one of the few VR games you've played. Does this qualify as a system seller to you?
Well, if the fact that I am considering, like, the first thing I want to do when I buy a new computer is get VR and then get Beat Saber. Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, you have a VR headset too. I know you don't use yours as much as I do because of your lack of space, but
Yeah. In my office, I've got a lot of equipment, and I don't have a whole ton of room at the moment.
I remember trying to play it on your headset and it not really working out on yours. Unfortunately,
Yeah, because
you have what they call the Windows mixed reality headset, and all the tracking is done from cameras on the front of it. But Beat Saber is a game where your hands will very frequently go out of your field of view.
yes.
And then you've lost the tracking for the next second.
The one thing
So
that
I unfortunately found it completely unplayable in those circumstances.
I believe that the controllers have gyroscopes in them to kind of help understand the system where they might be if they're out of your field of view. But something like
using
that, really doesn't help.
it will always know the rotation based on that,
Yes.
and it can use it to help guess position, but it's still a guess. And when I tried with your headset, even once I brought it back into the visible range, it's still there was still a delay between it noticing that it came back.
Yeah.
At least that was my experience, and it's possible that's improved. Actually, Valve had to put out a Steam VR update to improve the tracking specifically because of Beat Saber.
Oh.
Because they have these sanity checks in place in their programming that look for situations that just don't make any sense. So, for example, if you're only using one tracker and the data somehow says you're positioned behind the tracker, they know that's not possible. They somehow received some garbage information. One of the things they checked for was how fast the human wrist could possibly move. And they were wrong.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so Beat Saber players broke Steam VR.
Changing the world.
I know I have an unpopular opinion about VR.
Oh shit.
Here we go.
I prefer the Windows mixed reality controllers over the Vive controllers.
Oh, that's more popular than you would think.
Really?
Purely on the joysticks. People are furious about the lack of joysticks for the Vive.
Yeah, because the thing is with the Windows mixed reality ones is they have the touchpads and the joysticks.
And the upcoming Knuckles controllers for Steam VR will have that too, so they learned something there.
With what the technology that we have right now, the only thing I hate about the Windows mixed reality controllers, well, there's two things. For one, they feel a little cheaper.
Absolutely.
And two, they do not have internal batteries to recharge. You have to use AA batteries for them or rechargeable AA's.
Yeah, that's frustrating for any modern electronic.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the idea is they figure it might die quickly enough that you want to be able to swap them out while playing.
No, I definitely don't think that's it. I think they wanted to try and cut costs as much as they can because their competitors were a little higher up on the market value.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the cheaper ones. Well, you bought yours for $200 maybe a year ago with the controllers included. So yeah, they get those prices pretty far down.
I mean, that was on a 50% sale because it was base marketed when I bought it at $400.
They called it a sale, but those sales happen all the time on several Windows Mixed Reality headsets.
Oh, definitely they do. But I don't know if I don't even know what the Vive is going for anymore, or even the Oculus.
Rift, I want to say 350. Vive, I want to say 500. It occurs to me the audience might not actually know what Beat Saber is. They probably do, but just in case.
Want me to paint with my words, Dalton?
Yeah, do a word Picasso.
Okay. You get to be. Do you guys remember the Star Wars toys where it was the Anakin and Darth Vader lightsaber all in one?
No.
Where you could press a button. Okay, yeah. You would get the lightsaber swinging out and it'd be the plastic saber, and then you push the button to make the light turn red instead of blue.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
No, I don't remember this.
Childhood me is now retroactively really jealous because I didn't know that was the thing and I didn't have it.
To be fair, it wasn't in my childhood much. It was around the time I started getting into my teens. You get something similar to that, except not at all. You get a blue saber and a red saber, and you stand there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you find some slapping beats, the ones that fucking they fucking drip, they rip, they slippity slip, and then blocks get thrown at you at ball breaking speed. You have to take these sabers, these red and blue sabers, and attack these blocks, which are also red and blue. So you get a red block, it gets cut by the red saber. A blue block, cut by the blue saber. And then there's these little triangles on them that'll point in any direction. You swing in that direction that it's facing, and it'll cut it in half, and you get more points.
Yeah, it's all pretty intuitive. It's something that you kind of see how it works the moment the blocks come at you. You just kind of get it. I guess what's compelling to me about this game over the other VR rhythm games, just besides that you have fucking lightsabers, is that this one.
I tried so hard not to say lightsaber.
This one
you started
doesn't
off
punish you so much.
You started off the comparison by talking about a lightsaber.
Well, I was gonna make the joke that you're half Anakin, half Darth Vader, but then I was like, nah.
Wow.
Guys, look,
yeah, there's some problems with that comparison.
It's been a rough fucking day.
Anyway, what I like particularly about this one is that instead of focusing so much on rhythmic perfection, like punishing you with that wasn't perfect if you're 5 milliseconds off, it's more about the swing itself. You're rewarded for accuracy, hitting the dead center of the block, and you're rewarded for having a longer swing. And it's a point system. It's not miss, bad, good, perfect. It's here's the number of points you got for that. So
clarify something for me. Sorry. Yeah. It's not velocity based in the controller. It's by the arc of the swing.
Correct.
Okay. I
recall at first, I think the creator at launch didn't quite explain that, and people were trying to figure it out. I think it might have taken him a few days to clarify. And yeah, a lot of people were caught off guard that it had nothing to do with the speed of the swing. It's how far the swing goes. Granted, when you're on hard or expert plus, you kind of need speed if you want to get a far arc. No way around it, so it kind of becomes the same thing at that
logic
point.
Goes right out the window, and you just have to just start flinging.
Yeah, but I mean, I play it if I'm on hard or higher. I don't get so focused on the points. Like below that, I know I can get an S rank, so I'll try. But at hard or higher, I'm just trying to hit as many blocks as possible, and so I don't swing that far, and I can hit a lot of notes with really small wrist movement, and just choose to focus on that instead. And the mod support really kept this game alive. It only has 12 or 13 official tracks. I think the PlayStation version has more because of that Sony money getting them more licensed music, I believe. But
yeah,
the mod support is going to keep this alive for a long time.
Oh, yeah. It's really hard to get across how addicting this game is while just talking about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it sounds, because on paper it sounds like any other rhythm game that you've ever played. Like if you've played Guitar Hero, or if you've played any kind of like, if you played Taiko Drum Master in an arcade or something like that. I don't know why that's the second one. I don't know why that's the second one that I thought of, but that's where my mind's at today.
Donkey Konga.
Yeah, that's one that maybe people have actually played in real life. But Beat Saber, it's probably just because it's in VR. When you put on the headset and you see the beams coming out of your controllers, and for the first time I swung it through a block, I was hooked. It's really hard to get across how just viscerally satisfying it is to play this game, especially when you're playing a harder song and you start to get really into the beat.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first played it, I felt the midichloridian things going through my body.
Jesus. Yeah. All right. I think that's all we have to say about that. I love it. That's that. Oh, this one I forgot to mention last week when I freaked out and said, "Oh shit, guys, I haven't watched or read or played anything. Cover me." Turns out I did, and I forgot. I read the second volume of The Umbrella Academy. I did say I liked the first one just enough that I'd still try it. Josh, did you end up reading the first one? You said you might buy it.
I never got around to it. I'm still really interested. I don't know, maybe I can borrow it sometime. This is Gerard Way's comic book, right?
Yes, that one.
The My Chemical Romance man.
Correct.
Yeah, so...
Which still blows my mind, by the way.
Right, absolutely it does. Dalton, does it get any better?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
And I think it made me realize what I was disliking about the first one, because I couldn't quite put it into words before. It wasn't, something was off to me and I couldn't quite figure it out. I think he just had a hard time with, it's a team-based book, like X-Men, but I think he just had a hard time introducing so many characters at once. Because I was reading the second volume and I was liking it more and I was trying to figure out why, and I realized, I guess I just understand the characters better now.
Okay.
Like maybe in that first book, you couldn't get enough time with each individual character to really feel like you knew them. You would get an idea of like their archetype. You'd get a couple primary traits. You'd get, this character's kind of gothy looking and he's into drugs.
So the narrative has gotten a little more in depth.
Yeah.
At least with character development, not necessarily story. Or did the story go way further into what it should be?
Yeah, I'd say the story's inherently more interesting because the first one was a lot of origin. So that happens. I don't even know that the characters started getting written better, though. It's just I had read more of them.
I see. Okay.
So I understood them better. Okay. Maybe I'd like the first one a little more if I went back to it again, because now it's firmly established in my head. This is what these characters are like.
Right. Okay. Now, is there any like goofy characters, kind of like how Deadpool is, or I don't know?
No, nothing like that. There's a pretty big lack of humor to be found, really, other than just there's some absurdity, like just costumes that look a little ridiculous and imaginative, that kind of thing. There's like a talking monkey, which you'll see in the trailer for the Netflix show, that kind of stuff. But there's nobody that makes jokes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'd say it leans pretty dark, really.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, that said, I think I'm pretty much caught up on the series because I think the third volume just started being printed late last year. I'm not even sure that arc is done yet. So I've really only got one more before I'm caught up. It's strange to me that there were 2 arcs made so quickly and then it just disappeared for a decade. I don't know if the publisher didn't want any more or if that was all that Gerard had written in advance and just didn't have any more ideas yet. I don't know, but
right.
It just seems kind of odd because it didn't feel like arc 2 was the end of something.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Like, it didn't feel like it was pre-planned that, like, oh, this is a 2-arc story and it ends here. Like, no, it feels like something that's intended to last a while. Because if you're, maybe just because of the number of characters, if you're establishing this many characters in a story, like, it's probably not going to be done very quickly.
Right, yeah.
You want them to all have meaningful arcs, so you expect that to take a while.
Yeah, especially with, like, because what you said there's only one volume and then the second one, correct?
Yeah, and then like a decade-long break.
Right. So, I mean, in that 10 years' time, it was either develop each character individually, kind of how Marvel did, or, you know, develop them.
Oh, I'd love to see him take that approach.
Right.
If that happened, I'm sure he'd be sharing the property with other writers, but I'd be real intrigued by that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, like, as far as this thing's longevity has gone, it doesn't seem like it's, I mean, it's probably been developed in the past 10 years, but it's not had the lifespan that Marvel has had, where they've had to do it, redo it, and then redo it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, if there's only just a short amount of thing with a large character, I'm assuming there's a large character cast in there.
Yeah, it's because the Umbrella Academy is a team of 7 heroes.
So the pacing has to be done very well.
Yeah, it's something that's not easy to deal with, and it was part of my problem with the first volume. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you know that the story's going to last a while, then you can carefully deal with 1 or 2 characters at a time. You can say, oh, these 2 characters will be the highlight of this arc. This character will get more developed in the next arc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm more into it now. I'm definitely going to read the 3rd volume, and provided it's an improvement like this one was, I'm hopeful that there's more of it now with this show coming. I assume the 3rd volume started getting worked on because of the show coming.
Right.
Yeah. So, did you guys have anything else to bring to the table this week?
I saw Blockers just before we started recording.
Oh, okay, go for it.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
I'm not.
I am not either.
It's a comedy movie. It's about parents trying to stop their kids from having sex on prom night. And
okay, I remember. I know that this movie came out like last year because someone asked me to see it and I didn't know what it was. But man, that description you just gave me sounds like this came out in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, it does. It's like
that's an American Pie movie right
God.
there.
Well, one of the main characters in the movie is John Cena.
Oh, okay.
So
All
as you
right.
can tell, you really only see 2 of the 3 main characters. So it's not really that eventful.
I was going to make that joke if you didn't, so it's good that we got that out of the way.
Thank you. No, John Cena was actually fucking hilarious in this movie, guys. He actually plays the overprotective dad very well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know anything about John Cena out of like his movie careers or acting career, but he's a pretty spectacular dude. So it's really cool to see him kind of get into the comedy thing, aside from like being an action hero and like kind of a role model to the people that follow him.
I had sworn until the trailer came out, there was a character that I really wanted John Cena to play, and he was not offered that part, and I was so mad. I swore for years that I would only go see Shazam if it was John Cena.
Shit.
The trailer looks great. The guy actually doing it looks great, but I've never cared for the character, and they announced it many, many years ago, and I had been saying for years, I will only go see this if it's John Cena.
Oh my God, guys, on a darker note with movies,
Mm.
well, that's going to be a bad transition, but did you guys see any of the shots from Aladdin?
Oh, fuck me, dude.
Have you?
Fuck me. Cancel this movie.
Yeah.
Unreal.
My wife shared a meme with me the other day before she got super sick. It's a picture of Will Smith, and then Will Smith as the genie, and they're side by side, and the one's just titled Will Smith, and then the one with him as dressed up as the genie is
Will Smurf.
no. Oh, it's Alolan Will Smith.
Shit,
I actually laughed really hard at it.
man. Yeah, I'm gonna stick by Will Smurf though. This
That one's pretty good too.
God awful. Not it's not even just what they did with him. I can't even say him because it's the visual design we're mostly complaining about here. No,
Right.
I take it back. It's him too. He looks his delivery on his one or two lines there was awful too, and so was Jafar's, and nothing is pleasant looking about this movie. And I'm not someone who's mad about these Disney remakes. I've seen most of them and liked most of them to some extent.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see Lion King, and I was excited when they announced this, but man, every promotional image or teaser that's come out has just made it look worse and worse. And
This movie,
I'm out.
this movie is not one jump ahead of the breadline. It's definitely in front of the swing of the sword.
They should have gave this to Jon Favreau,
Yes.
who made The Jungle Book a better movie for them, and so far appears to have done really well with The Lion King. Let it wait another year. Disney, you're putting out enough movies this year. You'll be fine. Just put it back a year or two later and have Jon Favreau do it.
Oh yeah, man.
Do you guys realize they're putting out 4 of these this year?
No. Wow.
4 of these live action remakes.
I'm just super
4.
bummed because Aladdin's one of my favorites.
It's Dumbo, which
Whoa.
I don't hear anyone talking about.
Oh, son of a bitch. Now that you mention it, I did see a trailer for it, I think.
Yeah, it looks fine, I guess.
Mulan is one of
whatever.
them, right?
Not for this
Not for
year.
this year. Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
I knew it was in the works.
I hope
I'm really
that looks
looking
better
forward
than
to that
Aladdin.
one.
Yeah. And then Lion King. And then Aladdin. And then actually a direct to streaming one for their upcoming Disney Plus service. I believe it's The Lady and the Tramp.
Huh.
All right, get at me when they do
Yeah.
a live action Emperor's New Groove.
No, they've not announced that one yet. How about
They totally should.
how about Atlantis?
It probably wouldn't even be hard to get David Spade to reprise his role as Kuzco.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's not like he's doing anything
How do you
else
feel
these
about
days.
them doing Lilo and Stitch? They announced that one.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know. That one's going to be really interesting if they do it well.
It wouldn't have been my first choice, but I don't hate the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. You know, Josh got it in my head that Mulan's going to be a thing probably.
Oh, it's already
Yeah.
in the works.
I'm kind of excited, but at the same time, I'm also really wary of it.
Yeah, casting's been done. I don't know if it's shooting yet, but it's definitely for next year. Apparently,
Who played Wushu?
is that the dragon?
Yeah.
That's Eddie Murphy.
Thank
So
you.
they did get him.
Well, I think they're not doing Wushu.
Wait, what if they just had Eddie Murphy just painted in red and tried to jump on Mulan's shoulder?
Okay, well, first of all,
'Cause
you
that's how
already
it feels
know.
they did with Aladdin.
First of all, you already know that if Wushu's in this movie and he's voiced, it's going to be fucking Kevin Hart.
Yeah, probably.
We already know this. That's just how it is. I'll put money on it if he's in there. But supposedly he's not. Supposedly, unlike the prior recent Disney live action adaptations, this one is not necessarily a remake of their animated cartoon. Supposedly, this is not a musical. The dragon's not in it. The story is very different. Apparently, this is not inherently Disney's previous Mulan.
So they're not going to have Jason Momoa playing the Hun?
I actually, if any of the casting was people I recognized, I don't remember any of it, but I think they managed to go with a completely or almost completely Chinese cast.
I remember
Really?
reading that as well.
Yeah, so good on them for
Absolutely.
that.
Big fan of that.
I'm excited for that one, and I'm more intrigued that it apparently doesn't actually have much to do with the previous Mulan.
Yeah, that's actually really, really interesting because it doesn't degrade the original so much. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
It better justifies its existence.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Like I don't know if you guys were aware. I don't know if you've ever seen the anime Blood Plus.
I have.
I've caught
did you know
maybe a
there was a
couple
live-
episodes.
There's a live action movie for it, and it's awful.
I saw that and I remember liking it, but that was over a decade ago. I might have had bad taste, but I'm not
Well,
actually sure if that was an adaptation of the anime. It might be
Dalton, let me
a different adaptation of the manga. Actually, I think it came out before the anime for what it's worth.
I don't know, but the full title of the movie is Blood Plus: The Last Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not,
It's a terrible
mistaken.
title, but I expect that out of anything translated.
They're not vampires, are they?
Yes and no. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't call them that, but it's what they are.
Well, yeah,
They call them Chiropteran in that series, but
yeah, and I don't know if that
They're
translates
vampires.
to vampire or not, but the way that
Chiropteran is that prefix in there, I think, means bats. Or maybe I'm totally wrong and I'm embarrassing myself. That's what I remember.
well, the other thing too is like there wasn't just human vampires. That's it. You know, there was the Chiroptera, and there was Chevaliers. There was Saya. I forget what she was specifically, but like there was so much going on, and just throwing that vampire in the title does not do it any justice.
Yeah. Okay, well, that aside, you were making a comparison to Mulan here.
Between the two,
I'm asking how you were getting here from Mulan.
because Mulan was fantastic, just like Blood Plus was, but the movie doesn't necessarily have to taint it.
Sure.
Which I'm kind of a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, maybe I'm kind of like washing down a foot here, but I'm just glad that all the fans of like Dragon Ball, for example, didn't hate the series just because Dragon Ball Evolution was garbage.
Right.
I think that's where I'm trying to go with my point here.
Right. Or Death Note's not worse just because of our shitty American movie. But
The Netflix, yeah. Oof.
But I mean, I think what you're saying is true of any adaptation, really. Like, if like when this Aladdin movie comes out and it blows chunks, like, I don't think that really hurts the original.
No, absolutely
I think
not. The original's
sequels-
still there, and you can go back and enjoy it and enjoy Robin Williams whenever you want.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I kind of feel like sequels can ruin a movie. Like,
Yes.
maybe The Matrix is one. The Matrix would probably have a far more impressive legacy without its sequels. But I never feel like a remake or a reboot hurts the original thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
that's
it's
just me.
because maybe it's because usually when you see like a remake, if it does terribly, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths and they just want to focus on it.
Or maybe you're right, because maybe, like, how often after all these shitty movies, like, when's the last time you've heard anyone talk about how great Terminator and Terminator 2 are? I think people still know, it, like, intrinsically that those are great movies, but it kind of spoils the mood of talking about them to repeatedly see these awful movies in that franchise come out.
Right. Absolutely. It's just
Getting nightmare flashbacks to Genesis now.
But yeah, it's just a shame that once a remake is done, and if it's done poorly, nobody ever wants to go back to say, "Hey, remember how great that was?" You know what I mean? Like it kind of takes a long time for it to happen, at least, unless like it's a reviewer and then they touch base on what could have been better in the good version, and then they go fucking ape shit over the bad one and what could have been fixed entirely, like not making it at all, or you know what I'm saying?
I gotcha.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess any attention can be good to a franchise, but I don't know. It's a really tricky sort of thing to debate.
In any case, I enjoy the possibility that we'll have a second Mulan that is different enough to be worth watching both of them. Before, when Beauty and the Beast came out, I felt really bad because I have my little brother never watched any Disney movies, really. Like, I bet he's seen less than 5 of them. I don't know. It's just animated movies were never his thing at any age. And before he went to see Beauty and the Beast with me, I made him watch the animated movie the same day. And when we were in the theater watching this new one, I felt so bad that I was doing this to him. And I liked that movie still, even though it wasn't different enough to justify itself. But I felt real bad that I was making him sit through this twice in a row.
Yeah. I think you and I have done a quite a in-depth conversation about things being redone or done on a different platform. Like if comics get adapted to a movie or a TV
on
series.
A different medium.
Yes, thank you. We both agreed that so long as the change wasn't directly bad or impeding on what actually happens in the story, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's
like
change whatever you want as long as your change is not worse than what was already there.
Yes, thank you.
Like let's say Jarvis in the Iron Man and Avengers movies. Like that character is not comic book. Jarvis is an actual butler, not an AI. But you know what? That change is better, so screw it. Nobody's complaining.
Right, absolutely.
And then retroactively, they made Jarvis be Tony Stark's father's butler, who you can see as a human character in the Agent Carter show. So that was an interesting twist there. But yeah, in any case, it's a pretty major change that nobody cares about because it didn't make it worse.
Can I ask you a question involving the Avengers, actually? This was something that I didn't quite catch in the Infinity War movie. Well, when the particular scene when Captain America comes out, is he technically Nomad at that point, and do they address it?
I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not technically qualified to speak in that level of detail on Captain America, but I would argue yes. They don't really need to say it, but yeah, I would argue so. It's definitely an homage to that either way.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, when Captain America comes out, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, well, it's Nomad, but I guess it makes sense why they didn't change him to Nomad, like actively.
It's canon. You can't say that if nobody ever gives them that title, but it's like, we know what they're getting at.
Yeah, it's kind
even
of
if they never say it. To be fair, at the same time, I'm pretty sure the Scarlet Witch has never been called the Scarlet Witch in any of these movies, but we know that's who that is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
wow. I'd never actually noticed that before.
Same for Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have never been called their names in these movies.
Yeah, they just call her Wanda all the time, don't they?
Yeah, I think someone might have referred to her as a witch at some point, but it's not hitting me when that would have been.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I guess technically in canon we can't call them that, but it's like we have eyes, we can see what they're an adaptation of.
Yeah, because like
they still get that name on all their marketing, posters and everything.
It's a nice little treat when you pick up on it like during the action of the movie. And then it's one of those things where like you like explaining who they actually are supposed to be. Like I remember like my mother-in-law, she was talking about how she was really happy to see Captain America in the movie, and I'm like, well, technically he's actually Nomad. And then I explained to her why he changed from Captain America, and that got her really interested into it. Or like, for example, like in the new one that's going to be coming out, Hawkeye being turned into, what was it? Ronin, correct?
Correct.
Was there...
Correct, and I wouldn't be shocked if the movie never says that name.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, did the trailer show him using a sword instead of a bow?
I believe so. Some sort of blade.
Yeah.
And that's a Ronin thing, and his costume is distinctly the Ronin costume. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we never hear them say that. Right. I think it's kind of a thing now in these movies that they either don't say a character's like hero name at all, or they say it very rarely. I guess that happens naturally, because why would these people be referring to each other that way?
Well, unless
nobody addresses Captain America. They address Steve or Cap at best.
Yeah.
It would never be organic in conversation.
Tony Stark does it. He'll be like, I'm Iron Man, and then he'll roll credits on you.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in a team setting, though, like people speaking to him, interacting with him, they don't say like, "Oh, Iron Man, get my back." It's Tony.
God, I loved that moment in Iron Man 1. Sorry, not to derail the conversation too much, but like,
No, you're fine.
Especially considering the time frame in which the movie came out. It was so refreshing because you had like major superhero movies around that time. You had like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and like what else did you even have? I'm blanking, but all of them were like, I have to maintain my secret identity. So it was so great at the time for Tony to just be like, yeah, I'm Iron Man, roll credits.
I mean, the heroes at the top of the world at that time were Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, who were all big on the identity thing.
Right. So it was just so refreshing to me when Iron Man 1 did that.
Then the Daredevil movie.
And I forget about how cool that was sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and let me tell you, that's a change from the comics. I think nowadays his identity is known to the public, but it took decades for the books to do that.
Well, hey,
And
I
they
guess
just
maybe
said,
that's
"Screw
another
it, it's too
instance
much of a trope."
of, a movie changing something and it not being a worse idea.
Not being worth complaining
Yeah.
about.
I would argue
Yeah.
that was one of the things that let you really, really drive how different Tony Stark was from all the other superheroes at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. And we'll definitely spotlight those movies at that point. So maybe that's all that needs to be
Maybe
said for now.
okay. I'll keep the rest in the tank then.
Yeah. In the meantime, I have one last thing to bring up before we're done. And that one thing is 3 things.
oh boy.
Those 3 things are 9 things.
Yeah. Well, they all have a first and middle and third act. I will not be addressing those individually. In preparation for the Lego Movie 2, I watched the first 3 Lego movies that have been out now. I had only seen the very first one before now, and I don't know why. I just didn't feel compelled to get to Lego Batman and Lego Ninjago until now. Have you guys seen any of these?
Well, I've seen Lego Movie 1, and I loved it. I haven't seen any other ones. I didn't even know there was a Lego Ninjago movie, so that tells you how far under the rock I've been.
No, that movie was far under the rock.
Oh, well, there you go.
That movie did not make bank.
Guys, I haven't seen any of them.
I can wholeheartedly
well-
recommend, at the very least, the first Lego movie.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This first movie, I don't know why I wasn't motivated to see these later ones, but that first Lego movie is made by the writers and directors who just did Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know if either of you got around to that.
Nope.
And it's interesting to me that those both came from the same people, because the first thing that stands out about both of them is a really unique style of animation that really isn't going to work anywhere else. It's like it's like they had a big revelation about, oh, here's a thing that can be done in animation, and no one's really going to be able to copy them because it works in a certain context. So when you're watching the Lego Movie, it's an almost entirely CGI movie, but all the Lego pieces and everything is made out of Lego. I mean, like, bodies of water are made out of Lego somehow, but all of it looks dead real, to the point of, like, you can see the seams on the character's hair, and you can see all of the nicks and scratches and everything, and you can see thumbprints on some of the pieces. And it's just, I remember, like, the frame rate can be a bit choppy, intentionally so, in some of it, for kind of that stop motion feel.
Right.
And I remember when I was first seeing it in the theater, like, being thrown off for a few minutes, where I was like, did they really do this in camera? And the more ridiculous it got, the more I'm like, oh, that would not have been feasible. There are not enough man hours on the planet to do this in camera. But it's a really convincing effect that it all is. And I mean, the story itself is charming too, besides the animation. These writers and directors, God, why am I forgetting their names? Josh, do you know offhand?
No, but I can ask my friend Google.
All right, go ahead and do that for me. These guys are basically notorious at this point for making movies work that really shouldn't, because
Chris Miller and Phil Lord.
there we go. So these two previously had done the 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street movies, which are things that, like, no one was asking for this. Nobody was asking for a reboot of Jump Street. Nobody's excited for that. But they wrote and directed those movies, and my God, it worked. And those movies are great. And then Lego Movie, like, nobody really thought this was a good idea, and they nailed it. And then they ended up working on but getting booted out of Solo last year. And I remember, like, when they announced that movie, at first I was like, why? First of all. But then when they announced that these two were working on it, and I'm like, you know what? Fine. That's what these people do now, is make things work that aren't supposed to. So I'm on board.
Right.
And then they got booted off, and that movie suffered for it. Spider-Verse, though, sounded like a great idea from the beginning. So that's not another example of it. But in any case, I love the Lego Movie. Definitely watch that. But then Lego Batman and Ninjago. I'm going to go with meh. Unfortunately, they're fine, but it just wasn't as exciting of an innovation. And I feel like that's probably going to hurt the Lego Movie too when I get around to it.
Right.
These movies might have tried a little too hard to imitate the humor of the first movie, given that what were the names again? Phil Lord, Chris Miller. They produced these other movies, but did not write or direct them. And I feel like their comedy was aped without it really getting nailed as well. And I just have no investment in the Ninjago franchise. I mean, it's a kid's franchise through and through. Maybe that sounds like a lame criticism when I'm talking about the Lego Movie of all things, but there just wasn't really anything in there for me.
Well, I think it's important. The Lego Movie, I mean, just the first one, because that's the only one that I've seen. I thought one of the things that it does very well is that it's one of those rare movies that appeals simultaneously to children and adults at the same time. You know, there is literally something for everyone in that movie. And I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed it so much. It's just it's very well written. There are levels of the story that's going to work for everybody involved.
Yeah, there's messages we can connect with. There's characters we're nostalgic for. The comedy just works better. Ninjago it has its funny moments here and there, but just nothing stood out about it. It didn't feel like it came from the same sense of innovation. It struck me as like totally average, like DreamWorks film. Like, it's Warner Brothers, but you know what I mean? It's like you watch a DreamWorks film and you're like, that was fine. It was competent but uninspired. The Lego Batman movie, though, my criticism's a little lighter there. What I'll say for Lego Batman is that I can tell that some of the people behind it have a really deep, passionate love and understanding for Batman history. I mean, there's a lot in there. There's acknowledgement of all the previous movies and so many B and C and D list villains and just references to really obscure things. They really cover a ridiculous amount of the Batman mythos in there, all in the name of comedy. And the comedy doesn't hit me as consistently as it does in the Lego Movie. And maybe it's because the personality Batman has in the first Lego Movie, that's very much still his personality here. And given that he's the main character, it's really the same joke over and over again, in a way.
That's what I was worried about when I saw trailers for the Lego Batman movie, was the
yes,
Will Arnett's Batman character probably couldn't hold a leading role.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it's him or the way the character's
it's
written.
definitely not Will Arnett, because BoJack Horseman's one of my favorite shows of all time, and he does a completely amazing job in his role as BoJack there.
Yeah, well, there we go. Fair enough. But so, yeah, that version of Batman you're seeing in the Lego Movie and in the trailers for Lego Batman, that's what he is throughout this movie. And the humor in that just doesn't last the whole time. That's something that should have been in doses. I guess people say similar things about the Deadpool movies, and for me, those are funny the whole way through. But for some people, they're like, nah, a whole movie of Deadpool's not funny. And I get it. So that's what I'm experiencing here.
Sure.
So that movie's good enough, but I'm not going to call either of them must-sees. And frankly, it has me not hurrying to watch the Lego Movie 2. I watched those just in case the Lego Movie 2 referenced them before I went in the theater to see it. But after seeing these, I mean, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I don't think they came back for Lego Batman 2. I think they're still sticking as producers and they didn't write and direct it. And that being the case, I'm not in a hurry to see it anymore. I'll wait until I can see it at home.
Yeah, that does.
But I will see it.
That does kind of curtail a little bit of my excitement for that movie. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. That said, though, they waited 5 years for it to get out there. So, you know, maybe they waited until they had good ideas.
It's got a 91 on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Oh, well, there we go. Maybe I'm worrying a little too much about nothing. Although I haven't seen what these other in-between movies have.
I was looking this up while you were talking, and at least Lego Ninjago got like a 52. It was not. It was pretty.
Yeah, so I imagine
pretty well.
I imagine the good reviews,
Guys.
Yeah, I imagine the good reviews there are just this entertained my kids. Good enough.
If it makes you feel any better, I think the last Lego movie I watched was Bionicle and the Mask of Light.
Before they were proper theatrical movies.
Yeah, when did that movie come out? Like back in early 2000s.
I've never seen a Bionicle movie, but I believe Lego still makes like small scale straight to streaming and DVD movies all the time, like Marvel and DC and Star Wars based. I think they still do that regularly.
God, I just remember I used to be a Boy Scout. Oh, got close to being a Boy Scout. I got my Arrow of Light, if that matters. But I remember being in the Great Corn Maze that we have down in our area. We had to travel through this giant field of corn, solve the maze. There wasn't even anything scary about it. Then I remember getting back to the lodge where they sell you the tickets and shit, and these tons of these little kids were watching that Bionicle movie. And it was just like on repeat for hours, and we got stuck there, so I had to watch it over and over. And I kind of swore from then on. I was like, yeah, fuck Lego movies.
I don't suppose Bionicle has any redeeming qualities for adults. I'm just taking a guess at it. But for what it's worth, the Lego movie absolutely does. And everyone should at least make sure they've watched that one. That said, we're getting pretty high on our runtime here, so I think we're just about good to go.
Yeah, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Yeah, I think that'll do it for this week, you guys.
Well, all right, everyone. Thanks for listening.
See you next week, guys.
Take care.